we'll go ahead and get started. We're about a minute late. Sorry, we just had to finish getting set up here. Thank you all for coming. Really appreciate it. I'm Kevin Martins.
And I'm Scott.
All right, let's get going. Enabling next-level security in Microsoft Teams. So our hope here is not to go too deep, but to provide you with some things to think about. Because when we think about Teams, all of us in here, we're thinking about getting Teams deployed, adoption and change management, porting telephone numbers, apps, you name it. But when it comes to Teams, there's a lot of other things we got to think about, security related, right? So let's start off with some intros. We'll go a little bit deeper. Intros, sponsors, stories, and demos. Lots of demos. We are depending on the demo gods to behave
That's
today.
true. There's lots of demos in this one.
But that's where it gets a little bit of fun. So for me, I'm from Westminster, Maryland. Married, 3 kids, been at Microsoft for 11 plus years. I have a passion for collaboration. Started off in Exchange years ago, migrated into Link 2010, stuck with it ever since, and picked up cybersecurity along the way. In fact, during COVID, when all travel stopped, I had some extra time, went back, got another master's degree, this time in cybersecurity. So that has led me to become a professor at University of Maryland on that topic, because I love it so much. It's a lot of fun, a little scary, a little daunting at the same time. But at Microsoft, I'm our modern work team lead. We work with partners. We help to evangelize Microsoft Teams, modern work, security, everything on top of there. Scott?
And I'm Scott. So I'm a former roadie. I toured with all the big rock and roll bands in the 80s and 90s. I have 7 patents to my name, okay? You've seen the stuff that I have invented. I also have 3 provisional patents as well. If any of you have ever been to a concert, you see the lights that are moving around, changing colors and stuff like this? That's me. I invented them in the 80s, okay? The product was called Verilight. I received a full-ride scholarship to Purdue University, but I could not handle Purdue. I didn't like the Midwest. I liked my mountains, and so I moved back home. I used to work at many high schools around the town. Aurora Central High School, which is just down the street. I worked there for quite a while. I worked for Littleton High School and some other ones as well. I've been at CDW for 2.5 years. It's my dream job, working for CDW. I interviewed, I think, for 7 different positions over the course of the last 10 years. And finally, something happened during COVID, and it's worked ever since. I like teaching people new things. I like seeing the lights come on once we start showing you what's going on. And lastly, I'm from Estes Park, Colorado, which is a little mountain town up north and to the west. About 5,000 people up there, and that's where I'm from.
Okay, so thank you to all of our sponsors. Met a lot of these people here. It's like a reunion coming to one of these events, from seeing Matt Landis and Wendell Martin from Landis, and Logitech, Poly, HP, Neat, LG. Just thank you, thank you, thank you. This has been a great event. In some way, I think even better than Enterprise Connect, because it's such a small community here, much smaller than an event like that. So let's get into it. Let's check on those demos. But before we do that, I've got to set the stage with a couple of things. Cybersecurity related. Cybersecurity in Microsoft. So we know, I just put a couple things up there. When we think about security in Microsoft Teams, we're thinking about, okay, we've got Teams messaging, the encryption's there, the calling's encrypted, there's options like that. I just took this from some of our documentation out there. But we're not focusing on that here. A lot of us here know this. Okay, I'm going to assume that. We want to focus on other things. Identity protection, threat protection, alerting, compliance controls, mobile protection, user awareness training in Teams. What the heck's that? We'll find out. And overall security posture. Hundreds of other things that you can do. How can you figure that out? So, who thinks of Microsoft as a security company? Thank you. One hand. Okay, I got two other late ones. Thank you, thank you. That's better than normal, actually. Most people don't raise their hands when it comes to this question. I'm going to tell you something. Microsoft is the largest cybersecurity company on the planet now. The largest. You just have never heard about us. You probably have never seen these numbers before. Not many people have. So let me go through them, and you'll think I'm nuts, but hear me out. Microsoft, every day, receives 65 trillion signals. Trillion with a T. Okay? Trillion signals. What do we do with that? We analyze those signals. We understand what's going on out there on a global scale more than a lot of the other competitors who also have great products, have great analysis, great AI, looking at all the different attacks, the different attack vectors, putting mitigations into place, and so on and so forth. But when you think about Microsoft, compared to the other vendors out there, and cybersecurity related, a lot of the other ones out there, they talk in terms of millions of signals. Again, these are trillions. So where do we get all these trillions of signals? When you think about Microsoft and the 200 plus different products that the company has out there, we're getting a lot of signals every day from theirs. Let me explain. How many Windows 10 and Windows 11 devices are out there installed running every day on the planet? 2 billion? Not that much, but close. About 1.5 billion, 1.4. Windows 10 and Windows 11 devices. So in Windows 10, we enabled something by default that had been included in Windows 8, but not enabled by default, and that was Windows Defender, endpoint protection. We started that with Windows 10 or Windows 8.1, I can't remember which. Anyway, through that, we had to do that. We had to do that to help further secure endpoints that were out there. But by doing that, we had a much bigger picture of the attacks that were going on out there. So we take those signals, we bring them in, we analyze them, and now let's say there's an attack on Windows 10, some devices in some geos somewhere. We take that information, we analyze it. An attack on one product is an attack now on, like I said, there's 200 plus different types of products that are out there. It's an attack on others. So an attack on an Outlook.com personal email account that's not there's no subscriber for it. It's not revenue generating for us, right? It's that also is an attack on Office 365 users, all of them, all 380 million of them that are out there. So we take that mitigation for Outlook.com, we put it in place for Office 365 and vice versa. XboxLive.com, what is there, 80 or 100 million subscribers to that service now? An attack on that service is also an attack on Office 365. So it goes around and around and around in what we call the intelligent security graph. Those 65 trillion signals, every time I go to update this slide, I have to go back and look at these numbers on an internal site that we have at Microsoft. It keeps on growing. It's amazing what's happening out there. So just a couple of the other numbers. 37 billion emails are blocked annually with threats on there. At Microsoft, we have over 8,500 people with the word security in their title. 8,500, that's a lot of people out there. We're monitoring 300 plus threat groups throughout the planet, 160 plus nation state groups. There's a lot going on here. Again, it's the best kept secret no one has ever heard of about Microsoft. So are we a cybersecurity company? Every hand. I see some nods now going up. Thank you. Okay, good. I've got some people convinced now. Okay, so that's my favorite slide to put up because I know you can't read it. RSA Security Conference is going on this week in San Francisco at the Moscone Center. I've been there many times, but I look at this chart, this placemat, as that conference room floor. Okay, there's hundreds of vendors there with hundreds of different products, each trying to do different things. So they're in different buckets here. There's IoT security, there's email security, risk and compliance, all of this stuff. Well, if I were to print this out on a big plotter and gave it to you, and you think about your environment, you might say, hey, I've got 10 or 20 of these different products here. Okay, well, every one that you put into place is just another hole that you have to worry about some attacker coming in, some new attack vector happening, right? So I'm looking at this, and then I'm thinking about Microsoft 365, and we're going to get into the demos here in just a little bit. We're going to hit on a few of the things that Microsoft 365 already has built in that most people are already paying for. just don't know about it because of all this. There's so much that you can do in there. And we need to change that, all of us here. So my ask is, and Scott's ask is help yourself. Help your organization understand what's out there. Help your customers as well. When you have that Teams conversation, that Teams telco conversation, talk about cybersecurity as well. And think about these couple of things we're about ready to go through in the demos here. So current threat landscape, 91% of all cyber attacks start with email. That's by Trend Micro in their annual report. SonicWall, there's a similar report. A lot of vendors have them. They say 90%. Okay, that's great. Verizon Data Report, 79 billion email threats blocked in 2022. We say we've had 37 billion here. There's a lot going on there in email. What are they after? They're after identity. That's the #1 threat vector. So when we think about identity, I'm going to start off with Azure Logs here in a moment, and I'm going to hand the rest over to Scott. Identity and MFA, multi-factor authentication. So in Azure AD, I think, there's about 550 million accounts right now. Of those 550 million accounts, think about global admins. What percentage of those 550 million accounts that are global admins have MFA enabled right now? Just a guess. 21%? Used to be, about a year ago, I bet, 33%. We're making progress. It's better, thank you. 5 years ago, it was like 3%. We're making progress. But it's still awful. 33% of all global admin accounts have MFA installed. The rest of them, it's a username and password, which our studies show mean absolutely nothing. All of that data is out there for sale on the dark web. And what's not out there, you can throw some algorithms at it, and they're just peppering it. I'll show you that in just a minute. Okay? It gets even, when you think about user accounts, it's not much better. In fact, it's worse. It's 26%. 26% of all accounts in Azure AD have MFA enabled. It's horrible. We need your help on that. Okay? ZDNet. This goes back a couple of years, 2019. 99.9% of all attacks can be prevented if you enable MFA. Google and Microsoft say the same thing. I've done a number of presentations on cybersecurity with field offices, with the FBI. They say the same thing. Jeff, I think we did one together ourselves a couple of years ago. So there's a lot of merit to this. MFA is the way to resolve a lot of this. Let me go back one. I'm going to back out of this presentation. I'm going to show you something here. Let me bringing up an Excel spreadsheet. Oh, come on. Here it goes. Thank you. I have to go the other way on this. We're all technical, so we get it. Let me see if I can zoom in here just a little bit. So what this is, if you go into the Azure portal on any tenant out there, you could pull up the login, all the logins, all the activities going on in your environment. Okay? It's interesting to look at in the GUI. But the GUI, you're not watching everything. You don't see all the cool data coming in. If you dump it to a CSV file, throw it to Excel, do some magic in here, and all I did was just put some header titles up there, give it a color, put some filters on the top. These are real logs coming in. Okay, so on this, how I created this log was I took a demo tenant and I turned it into a bit of a honeypot. Okay. I went out there and just created a bunch of user accounts, started putting them in different nefarious websites, we'll call it. And it didn't take long, and I started getting hits from all over the place. But I also was logging in from different locations as well. All right, so on this, we can see, again, I'm from the Maryland area. So I can look at these logs, and I can say, okay, someone from logging in, me, from a place in Susquehanna, Maryland. Okay, that's legit. I get it. And this is going to be really small for me to see. But if I, this is really small for me to see up there. Hang on 1 second. Let's see if I can blow this up. Here we go. It's a little better. If I take out all the areas in Maryland where I was messing around, I might have a few left Someone correct me if I miss one. It's one of the S's, thank you. There it is, Susquehanna. Okay, click on OK for this. All right, let me zoom back out here a little bit so you can see the rest of it. Okay, so now, oh, I missed one. Gwinoak, just ignore that. Now I've got log-on attempts coming in from everywhere. So Microsoft, again, 550 million Azure Active Directory accounts. Every second of every day, we block 900 brute force attacks. And these numbers range from 0 to 12 months ago. Okay, 900 every single second that are out there. You can see what's going on. You could pull up your logs in your tenant, and you could see the same thing. If you have customers, go into their tenant, pull up the logs, you'll see the same thing as well. What countries are hitting us? There's Italy, there's China, there's Great Britain, there's Egypt in there, there's Vietnam in there, if I were to scroll further and further down the list. Every second of every day, look at this, and there's thousands, there's 2,300 rows of this, right? These are tenant logs. The information's there, but did you know you can export this and sort it this way to see what's actually happening? To me, this is quite a justification to look at MFA, to say MFA is needed in this environment to help secure the accounts that are out there. So with that, I will minimize this, hand it over to Scott to do a couple of demos as we go through it.
Great. So MFA is really pretty simple. You log on to your application, you get a prompt on your phone. It says, is this you? Do you approve it? So let's go take a look and see what it really looks like. Here's my phone right over here. Here's the app. And in this case, I'm logging on, and here is a global admin. And the typing's pretty slow, but you'll get the idea.
Password 123.
And there's the approval on the phone, and now you're going to be into your application. In this case, it's Outlook Web Access. That's MFA. That's the simplest thing that you could do to help secure your tenants right now. I forgot the question I was going to ask you, but that's okay. So anyway, we'll go back to, now we'll talk about a little bit more about conditional access. How can we restrict who's logging into what who's logging in from what countries? And in this particular case, we'll do a demo here with a Tor browser.
Whoever's heard of a Tor browser or used it? A couple of hands.
What does a Tor browser do? It anonymizes your IP addresses, right? Okay, so.
Tor browser, T-O-R. If you look it up, you can download it. It's just another web browser. But, I'm sorry? Okay. So while Scott's typing that in, this is our Tor browser. Again, another free one, just like Chrome or Edge out there. Just lets you come in from different IP addresses, hopping through a couple different gateways.
Okay, if we take a look here, we can see exactly where we're coming through. So it looks like we're coming through the United States, then over to Germany, then over to Romania. Okay, so now we know that we're not even generating traffic from the United States going into this tenant. Going to prompt me for MFA, because I am a global admin there. access blocked. In this case, it says you can't do that here. You can't do that. Okay?
Blame Scott.
Blame Scott. Now, so that's conditional access and how we restrict things only from the United States. Okay? Then we have application conditional access. What in the world is that? Okay? We've set up application conditional access in this case so that if you're not logging in from a hybrid joined server or from an Intune or hybrid joined workstation or from a workstation that's got Intune on it, you are restricted to only doing certain things. Okay? So let's go take a look at what that's all about. I've got to find my cursor here. Okay, so in this case, we're logged on as Adele, and we're in Microsoft Teams. So let's take a look at some things here. We're going to highlight some things. We're going to try and copy and paste it out of there. And of course, the demo gods are not being good to us today. Say wait. Let's try again.
Oops. It
Oh.
popped the box up.
Action blocked. So with the Dell, we cannot copy or paste anything out of a web application right now because this machine is not a hybrid join machine. Okay, that is application conditional access. What does that look like on the back end?
Blame Kevin, by the way.
Yeah, blame
Thanks,
Kevin.
Thanks for adding that in. Yeah. It's not you.
So here we are in enterprise applications, okay? And then we'll find conditional access over here. And then policies. In this case, we have 2 policies. That's it. That's all we have. This one here is your regular MFA policy. Come over here, we're selecting the users. In this case, we're selecting every admin role here. Okay, this will protect all of your admin roles. So we're selecting every admin role. Don't forget to exclude your break glass accounts. Okay, that's a big one. And then come down over here to Grant. And we're requiring multi-factor authentication. That one's the easiest one to put in place to protect all of your users. The other one's a little bit harder to do. You have to go to 3 different places to do some things, but let's take a look at it. We select our users. And again, don't forget to exclude your break glass accounts. Okay? You select your conditions over here. And in this case, the device platforms. And I'm including all, but I'm excluding Android, iOS. So I'm only including Windows devices here in this particular instance, okay? And here we use a session control. So we come down over here to session controls, and we've got multiple session controls put into this conditional access policy, okay? And all of them will get triggered from this one session control. So first thing, we have to go over here to settings, and we have to select which apps we're going to control. So we'll come down over here to Cloud Apps, and we scroll down here, Connected Apps. So let's go take a look at these app connections here. These are all the ones that you could do that are easy to put in. You can control all sorts of different things. You can control Google, you can control Box, you can control all sorts of different things in here. Real easy, okay? But if there's ones that you don't know how to, that aren't in this list, we can come over here to this list and add them in, and any SAML application we can control, okay, through the Microsoft proxies, okay? So we have to go select which applications. And then we come over here to the policies. And conditional access, and you see that I've created a bunch of conditional access policies here. But Scott read-only mode, this is the one that's blocking everybody from copying and pasting and printing in this particular case. Okay? So if the activity is type is block or paste, copy and cut, stuff like this, we're going to block the activity. Okay? We can also send an email alert from here to the appropriate people, and we have sent it as well. The cool thing about this is we can also send things to Teams chats. I sent this alert to a Teams chat, okay? I created this Power Automate bit of code here that says that when an alert is generated in Defender for Cloud Apps, it's also going to send that alert to me in Teams chat. Why did I do this? Because this, to me, would be an important alert, and I don't want it to get buried in my email. Bottom line, okay? So that's how we set all these ones up. You can use them together, and you can use them separately. I was there for a little bit of Tracy's session. It was a good session. This takes it a little bit deeper than that as well, okay?
Yeah, conditional access, there's literally hundreds of controls in there. Another thing that Microsoft does as a security company is we keep track of all the malicious IP addresses that are out there that are being used for DDoS attacks, for example. Those IP addresses, if we see a logon coming from one of those, you can set up a policy. It's buried, where Scott just was. Hey, if you see a logon attempt coming from a suspicious IP address, just block it out, right? Or require MFA, or require another factor of authentication. There's a lot of different controls in here. It goes very, very deep. This is just really, really high level.
Doesn't seem like your remote's working.
Oh, that's all right. We'll just have to hit that then.
I think you got the next one.
All right. Okay. So, moving right along with the next demos, let's Microsoft Defender for Office, MDO, okay? What this is Exchange Online Protection, right? Exchange Online, when you purchase that, you get protection included with that. It's everything we know about when it comes to security. But what about the attachments being sent through, or the URLs being sent through email? Things that we've never seen, other providers haven't seen, but we definitely want to defend against those, because it's a cat and mouse game, right? If we start taking hashes of all the different malicious attachments and we start just looking at hashes, well, the attackers know that. So they're creating new malicious files, new Word documents with macros, Excel documents with macros, and so on and so forth, every single day, stuff we haven't seen before. So MDO is designed to take those, put them up to the cloud as it's coming in. Before it's delivered, we'll explode those in the cloud. We're looking for malicious activity. If found, we'll block it, right? There's a couple different configurations on that. That's just a high level for it. But a lot of people think that's just for Outlook. What about Teams? What if my account has been breached and I send Scott a note in your CDW tenant? We talk all the time. We, of course, collaborated on this. Well, Scott, you're in Teams. You're going to assume it's me.
Right.
The trust factor is there. Whereas now, in most email environments, we get a tag that says external to raise our awareness level, to say, hey, watch out for this email. It came from the outside. It's not inside. But with Teams, do we do that? Do we think like that? No. We just assume that it's us, right? But Teams is now a huge threat. Like I mentioned, there's, a couple 100 million Office 365 users. There's, I think just yesterday, a new number came out. The number of active Teams users every month is now 300 million. Before, the last number was 280. So 300 million active Teams users every single month. That's quite an attack target, okay? So when we think about MDO, I think about OneDrive, I think about Teams, and I think about SharePoint. What is protecting them? If you have MDO, you can now protect these other three areas as well. But the trick is, it's not on by default. You have to know where to set this. You have to know that it's there. So that if I send Scott, again, going back to my scenario, my account's been breached. If I send you a URL, hey, go check this out, you're just going to go click on it. Okay, so, but using a service like this, before that URL is launched, we'll scan it real time. The Microsoft MDO service will scan that. So where do you go to configure that is the question. And where's my mouse? Here we go. Microsoft Defender for Office. We'll log into the portal here. We'll go down to policies and rules. We'll get threat policies. Go down to safe attachments. Why it's here, I don't know. I wish it were somewhere else that were more self-explanatory. It's in safe attachments. Then from there, we go to global settings. Here it is, off by default. Turn on Defender for Office 365 to help protect SharePoint, OneDrive, and Microsoft Teams. Right? Turn on safe documents for Office clients. And then finally, down here at the bottom, here's something else. So let's enable this. Okay, we're good. We're good. But down here, let's say if we scan that URL and we find it to be malicious. But Scott says, that's wrong. I know Kevin's good for it. You could configure that last option to allow Scott to bypass that scan result that says it's infected or malicious. Why would you enable this? I don't know, but please don't. You're trusting your users with that option? I wouldn't. So we'll cancel that. But let's continue on. Interest of time. Go back in here. Do you want to hit this one?
Sure.
There you go.
Defender for Cloud Apps. This is where the stuff that happens is, I think, is really pretty cool. How many people know what shadow IT is? Okay? I describe it as this. When there's a will, there's a way. You can set up all of this stuff to protect DOP policies and all this kind of stuff. And the bottom line is, if there's a will, there's a way. Somebody will try and find a way around it. How do you figure out what's going on? That's where this comes in. Let me pull up the other demos here. And let's go to cloud discovery.
Who's ever been in here? A couple people? This is one of my favorite tools. Gosh, there's so much in here. Everything you didn't know that you had in your environment for Shadow IT, this thing will pick it up.
We can put in all sorts of logs from all sorts of different firewall vendors to figure out what's going on in your environment, okay? And in this particular case, we've got one loaded in here, if I can find it. It's this one here. Look at that. We've got 288 apps that are in use in this demo environment. But wait a minute, only like 30 of them are approved for IT. Let's go take a look and see what's getting used. And in this particular case, we'll come over here to collaboration. What else is going on in collaboration? Teams is the only environment that we're supposed to be using. But we see some people are using TeamViewer, some people are using Google, okay? Some people are using, what's this, U-Drive right here? What the heck is that? Let's go take a look.
Never heard of it.
We can pull up all of this information here about this one particular app. This is all by default in Microsoft, by the way. Let's take a look at this. All these red marks in here. Do you think you want that in your environment? What if you're a bank? It's not ISO, it's not SOX, doesn't do any of that. Who all's using the environment or U-Drive? All these users are using this particular app. Maybe we need to go talk to them and find out what needs to be done in our environment to help facilitate them not using something like this. Okay? That's cool stuff to me. Okay?
So Scott, that U-Drive that you pulled up, that was one application of about how many that are cataloged with all of those data points. Do you remember?
32,000, I believe. It changes.
Yeah. Thousands of apps in there. Apps we've never heard of. Apps we're wondering as IT admins, or maybe we're doing a security assessment in any given environment. We're wondering, what are all these apps doing? Maybe there's a good reason. Maybe the HR department is using U-Drive to upload all their data, all of our HR data, all of our social numbers and everything else. But who knows where it's hosted? That portal will tell you.
From the user's PC.
It can be. That can be part of it. There's a lot of different ways to set this up, to get the data in. Case like this, what Scott did was, say someone's got a Cisco Meraki or a Sonic wall or WatchGuard. Those logs, we took a snapshot of those logs, uploaded them into this tool. It parsed it all out into the report that Scott was just going through. That's where that data is coming from in this case. Now, Defender for Endpoint can send those signals into the live service as well.
Yep, but this was just generated from log files on the firewalls, okay?
Quite a neat tool when you're thinking about just a very simplistic security assessment. And that tool, this tool, you can get for 90 days for free, no cost, as a trial. All you have to do is sign up.
Okay, so let's go talk about some alerting here, because we can set alerts on all this kind of stuff too. We didn't set an alert for this, by the way, okay? But we can set alerts for all different kinds of things. We can create our own custom alerts to do different things, activity policies, log on, log off, stuff like this, okay? DLP alerts, for example, I can send directly into here as well. In addition to going to the DLP section, okay, and send an alert that I can only send that alert to an email address. Here, I can find it and send it to my teams, okay, just like I did with all of the other alerts. In this particular case, let's go search here for some of the stuff I did create. Here's a DLP alert right here. So, the activity type contains a DLP match. I'm going to send it to Microsoft Teams, is basically what I did, okay? We can also go over here into the DLP alerts, and we can go take a look at DLP directly here. That alert? No, I created that alert.
Oh, yeah, thank you. Thanks. While this is loading, any other questions that we can answer? Okay.
And of course, I don't see the policies where I want to see them today. Let's go over here and take another look at it. No, I'm not seeing it. But anyway, we could go in there and we could create this DLP policy that goes in and says, look for social security numbers, look for credit card addresses, look for passport numbers. And if any of this is in OneDrive, in Teams, in SharePoint, or anything like this, let's go ahead and we'll start protecting this, okay? So in this particular case, we can go find Adele here again. We like to pick on Adele quite a bit. That'll go through the engine and look at that. It's blocked. If you were to receive that, you would, if you're on the receiving side of that, it would blink on and then it would blink off again. Wouldn't even know that it was there. Okay, we could go here and take a look at the policy tips. It says you can't do that right now. Anybody remember the Kembe Mutombo? Yeah? No, 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 not in my house. We can customize those policy tips, okay?
I think memory serves, if you go in, when you go into the configuration of those policies, there's over 100 different policies pre-configured. Our passport numbers, for example, in the US look different from those in Australia or the UK. They're all pre-configured that are in there. If you're running a super secret project inside of a customer's environment, for example, they've got different code names for different things, different account numbers, whatever it may be. You can create custom policies like what Scott's done, and you can grab those too and make sure they're not communicated both internally, and I think you have the option to say internally you can talk about that as much as you want, but externally, that's what's going to happen.
Correct. And this is very important to do. John?
I think it's regex.
Regex. It's very important to do. I was working at a company, and we wanted to, or I wanted to anyway, start protecting the information that was up in Office 365. We had all sorts of different things up there, okay? From user social security numbers to their health information to proprietary information, how to make this one particular widget, okay? And I went to my vice president of IT and I said, we need to start creating some DLP policies to help protect our people. And his response to me was, I don't care. He says, I don't care about credit card numbers because if somebody gets my credit card number, I can get another one tomorrow. I don't care. Those 3 words were pretty detrimental because it just so happened that the head of production for this company emailed out all of our instructions on how to do the widgets, exactly what kind of router bits we needed to do this and that and the other thing, emailed them out to her private Gmail account, left the company and went to work for the competitor. Millions of dollars walked out the door that day. And all it would have taken was maybe a couple of days of work with DLP policies to help protect that. Very important to do. Kevin, I think you're up.
Yeah. Yep. Thanks, Scott. Have to find my glasses. All right, so, interest of time, I'm going to go over just a couple of things here.
Already
DLP
talked
policies.
about that, and there we go.
Yep, mobile protection. I'm gonna go by this. I'm not gonna demo this here today. Basically, I've got a cell phone up here. We would have connected in, mirrored out the screen, and pulled up a Teams client. And in that Teams client, I would have tried to copy out some text, just like Scott did a copy and paste, right? Using the Teams web version of it, right? You did a copy and paste. The action came up and it said, "Oh, sorry, you can't. You're blocked. No," right? On a cell phone, same thing. If you try to copy out, Scott sends me something very sensitive, I'm like, oh, that's pretty good. I'm going to send that to my buddy over here on iMessage on my Apple iPhone. I try to copy out that text, whatever it is, paste it into iMessage. Instead of that text coming up, it's going to say, sorry, your admin has blocked this. Can't do it. So you say, okay, so what? I'll take a screen capture of that. You can also set up a policy that blocks that as well. Okay, yep, you can do that on both Apple and Android devices. So moving right along, this is a fun one. All right, user awareness training. So we talked about email phishing, email attacks. All right, there's phishing, there's whaling, there's smishing, vishing, spearing, spoofing, tech support scams, all that kind of good stuff. What else is there? All right, let me throw another term at you. What's that? What is spam? I made it up. I didn't make it up. I didn't make it up. Any guesses on what this is? IM spam, right. Spam over instant messaging. All right, so we just talked about the scenario where Scott IMs me something or vice versa. Hey, we trust each other. Life is good. No one's getting into Scott's account. I can't assume that. You've got to raise awareness. So when we think about raising awareness, what do we do over email? There's great companies out there that do this. Microsoft does it. It's part of M365 if you have the right license for it. There's KnowBe4, there's Terra Nova, there's a couple of other ones that do phenomenal jobs with this stuff, right? But what about Teams? Coming in a couple of months. In Microsoft 365, you have the attack simulator for email. There's a Teams attack simulation that's coming in a couple of months. Pretty neat. We've never seen this before. Scott and I literally got this hooked up this morning. This is in a private preview right now in M365. It took us a while of going back and forth with some of the devs on the back end of Microsoft to get this working in this demo tenant. But what we'll do is I will bring up, where's my mouse? Here it is. Let's walk through it. Let's walk through it very quickly, very abridged version of what this thing's going to look like.
You're in the compliance portal, not the
That's
security
why I
portal.
got to go security portal. Here it is. Okay. So here's attack simulation training for email. Okay. New in here, if you pull up simulations in your tenant today, and you launch an attack simulation, you don't see this option, right? You bypass this. But in this tenant that's hooked up to the private preview of the Teams attack simulator, I'm going to click on Microsoft Teams. I'm going to go next. I have a bunch of different options on how I want to attack my users. Okay, very quick demo. I'm just going to keep it at this. Again, they're after identity. That's what they're after. Username and password so they can log in as Scott, log in as me, and start moving laterally through environments. So credential harvest. I'm going to go through this. I'll give it a name. Test. Go to next. Oh, I've got to select an account. Apologize, I've already got Scott. Scott's an admin on this tenant. I've selected him. He is the sender of this simulation. Okay, I'm going to choose a payload. I'm not going to show you, interest of time, on how I created this. There were a couple steps involved here. I'll go next. I'm going to target poor Adele. I'm going to get Adele again. All right, let's go here. Find Adele. There's Adele. Add her. Say next. I'm not going to exclude anyone. I'm going to assign training. Yeah, if you click on that link, I want you to take some training about it. Let's click on next. Yeah, here's a bunch of different landing templates on what happens when someone clicks on this. Yeah, here's just a preview of what that would look like, and we'll see this live in a few minutes. Right? There's a couple of different options in here, and then you can actually modify these if you like, or create your own custom one. Okay, so there's that. Get it in English. Keep on going with next. I want to do I'll take the default notification. I've got to select on these Microsoft default policy reinforcement notification. So a couple of us in the room work for Microsoft. We were spammed last week as part of the attack simulator. If you picked up on that and you reported it as spam, you got an email right away saying, hey, congratulations. Not only did you recognize it as spam, but you reported it too. That's positive reinforcement. I'm like Pavlov's dog or something, I guess, all of a sudden. Anyway, on here, I'll keep it there. Oh gosh, I wish that were bigger there. I'm going to deliver it during a campaign. And here, I'm going to remind that person to take their training twice a week. I'll go next. I'm going to launch this as soon as I'm done here. I'll go next and submit. All right. So, Ron and Scott here in this profile. I'm going to bring over Adele. Watch this. It's still submitting here in the background. Simulation has been scheduled. Give it about 30 seconds. Should come through. And then I'll go ahead and click on the link, and you'll see what happens then from there on out. I'm sorry, say again? It could be, this one here is from an internal user. The question was, where did these links come from? Right? Where's this attack coming from? Yeah, internal user. In fact, you have to set up that user in the environment. There's a couple of other different steps you have to enable that user. In this case, I chose Scott as a global admin. There's sorry.
Almost.
I don't know that feature. No, I'd love to find out more about it, though, if you don't mind staying. Yeah. Real quick, on here, so the attack simulation came through. All right. Hey, did you know that Comms vNext was giving away a headset? I want a part of that, right? Scott says, hey, Adele, go ahead and click on this link and go check it out. Okay, you got it. Going to click on that link. I've I've got to log in. There we go. All right, I'm going to log in here. This is a spoof site. It's not a real site, right? It doesn't matter what you log in with. You know, I'm going to choose Adele. Go next. Password is 1234. This information is not logged anywhere, by the way, so even if it is your real credentials, it's not held anywhere. We just want you to go through the motions and figure it out. Oh, and you all recognize this. This was part of the setup that I just went through. All right, so what happened from here? Well, you clicked in there, so guess what you got? You were phished. So in here, let's go to Outlook. You have now received an email message with your prize. In the next 30 days, you've got to go through this training that we've already assigned to you, and life is good, and hopefully now you'll remember that just because someone sends you a URL, you still have to be wary of it, right? I don't know of anyone else who does this yet in Teams. Teams attack simulation. So here is the notification that just came through. Actually, this might be from one of our tests earlier today. But you get the idea, interest of time. Scott, go ahead. Sorry, real quick, who's got the mic? Oh. Yeah. Just for the recording, thank you. Go ahead. It's a great question. The question is, how can you help the user pick out components of a Teams message coming through to learn from it, right? How can they identify, just like we identify external senders, we're looking at URLs and so on and so forth. In that configuration, in the payload that I didn't walk through on how I set that up, you can put tags in there. I could pick out specific areas of the HTML code that's in there. I could put tags in. Hey, this URL, watch for that. And there's a little bubble that flies out. But you can do things like that. That's all a custom setup. So again, Attack Simulator is supposed to be coming out later on this summer. Keep an eye open for it. You can actually get onto the preview, public preview when that comes up. In the deck, we'll provide a couple of links on how you sign up for that, so you can check that out. With that, we are out of time.
We're out of time.
But thank you very much for the questions. We're here. We're bumping into lunchtime, so if you have any questions, please let us know. But thank you all. Appreciate it.
Thanks.